Hey everyone. You ever get that like totally frustrating thing where your coffee filter's all jammed up with hard grounds?
Oh, yeah, totally.
Like it's almost like a brick in there.
It's a bummer.
It is, really is.
Huh?
So that's what we're going to be looking at today in this deep dive.
Okay.
We're looking at hardened coffee, and we've got some articles from Coffee at Corner
Nice.
that are going to be like walking us through what's going on. We've got some really interesting questions that we'll be looking at,
Okay.
like why it happens,
Hmm.
whether it's actually safe to drink, and can you vacuum seal coffee grounds?
I like that last one.
Yeah. And to help us figure all this out, we've got a coffee expert here with us today.
Yay.
So I guess first off, like we've all been there, right? You get that hardened coffee situation. The taste is off.
Yeah.
Filter's clogged.
Yeah.
What is going on?
Right. So usually that means that like something didn't go quite right when you were brewing it.
Okay.
The flavors didn't fully come out of the grounds, and so you end up with this like stale coffee buildup,
That makes sense.
which makes it taste all weird and creates that hard mess.
So how we brew it matters. Like
Got it.
what kind of equipment are we using?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Okay.
I mean, think about your own setup. Like you use an automatic drip. Or do you grind your beans fresh? All that stuff can play a part.
You know what? I am guilty of using pre-ground coffee when I'm like in a rush.
Yeah.
So maybe that's my problem. But
Mm.
okay, before we get into how to prevent it, the articles did have some like emergency fixes
Right.
for when you just really need that coffee.
Yeah, those mornings.
You know what I mean?
Totally.
So what do they say?
Well, there's the one where you rinse the filter with hot water.
Okay.
Try to get those grounds unstuck.
Right.
You can also like carefully break up the hardened stuff with a spoon.
It's like coffee surgery,
Yeah,
but those are like temporary.
pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah, they might save the day, but you got to stop it from hardening in the first place.
Okay, so how do we do that?
Well, the articles were really big on using fresh beans and grinding them right before you brew.
Okay, so why is that so important? Freshness.
So think about it. Coffee beans have those compounds that give them the aroma and flavor,
Right.
but over time, those break down, especially when they're exposed to air.
Okay.
So grinding your beans fresh releases all those flavors right then and there.
So it's like when a chef uses fresh ingredients, right?
Exactly. You get the best possible taste.
Yeah.
And once you have those fresh grounds, you got to give them enough time to steep.
Okay.
Make sure they get completely saturated with water.
Right, so if I rush it, that could be a problem.
Yeah, you could end up with uneven extraction and then, bam, hardened coffee.
Hardened coffee. Okay.
Yep. Another tip they had was to add a little more coffee to the filter.
Oh, okay.
It can help with extraction, especially if you like it strong.
So it's all about finding that balance, right,
Right.
between flavor and not making it too packed in there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now let's talk storage, because that's a big part of keeping your beans fresh.
Right, and avoiding that hardened coffee situation.
Exactly.
The articles really pushed airtight containers.
Mhm.
Is it really that bad to just leave the bag open? I've been so bad about that.
Well, I get it. It's easy. But air and light and moisture, they can really mess with your beans.
Oh, no.
Yeah, an airtight container keeps all those good flavors and aromas locked in.
So my lazy habits are coming back to bite me, huh?
Maybe just a little.
Okay, well, what kind of container is best?
The article said glass or ceramic.
Oh, interesting why those.
Well, unlike some plastics, glass and ceramic don't hold on to flavors.
Oh, that makes sense.
So your coffee tastes as pure as possible.
So that paper towel roll trick works, like to seal the bag.
Oh, yeah. It's a good one. And cheap, too.
That's awesome. Okay, I have to ask about vacuum sealing
All right.
because the articles are kind of back and forth on it.
Mm-hmm.
So is it like a game changer or just a gimmick?
That's a good question, and it's not a simple answer.
Okay.
It really depends on the vacuum sealer itself and what kind of coffee you're using.
Okay, they did say that some vacuum sealers are made specifically for coffee.
Right.
So is that worth it?
We'll get into that, but first, let's tackle another storage debate, refrigerating coffee.
Oh, yeah. Some people swear by it, others say it ruins it.
It is a big debate.
So that's the truth.
Well, here's the thing. You can put coffee in the fridge,
Okay.
but it's not really the best idea.
Why is that? I figured keeping it cold would keep it fresh.
You'd think so, right? But fridges are actually kind of damp, and they can make your beans pick up weird smells.
Ew.
Yeah, and those delicate coffee flavors can soak those right up.
So that's why some people say it tastes off.
Probably, yeah. So it's better to keep it in a container in a cool spot.
Out of the fridge.
Exactly. Now, going back to vacuum sealing,
Right.
the article said it can be good for keeping coffee fresh,
Okay.
but there are a few things to keep in mind.
Like what?
Well, the type of vacuum sealer is important.
Okay.
Some are made for coffee specifically.
Yeah.
They create like a special environment so you don't lose too much of the good stuff.
So like a regular food sealer isn't as good.
Maybe not the best. And it also depends on the kind of coffee you're sealing.
Oh, really?
Yeah, if it's pre-ground, vacuum sealing might actually make it go stale faster
Why is that?
because the grounds have more surface area exposed to air.
Makes sense.
So it seems like vacuum sealing works best with whole beans
Okay.
and a coffee-specific sealer.
So it's something to think about if you're serious about your coffee.
For sure. Now let's talk about something totally different, repurposing hardened coffee.
Oh, yeah.
I was surprised to learn you can actually do a lot with those old grounds.
I know, right? I always thought they were just for compost or something.
Right, but the articles had some really cool ideas.
Like what?
Well, one was making ice cream with hardened coffee grounds.
Wait, what? Ice cream from hardened grounds?
Yep. Sounds kind of weird, but apparently it gives the ice cream a nice subtle coffee flavor and a unique texture.
I might have to try that.
Yeah, it's worth a shot.
What other ideas did they have?
You can add them to smoothies for a caffeine boost
Okay.
or use them as fertilizer. Yeah, they're full of nitrogen, which plants love.
So it's like recycling your coffee waste.
Exactly. It's pretty cool how even hardened coffee can have a second life.
Totally. Okay, so we've covered a lot today.
We have.
We looked at why coffee hardens, how to fix it, how to prevent it, even dove into the whole vacuum sealing thing.
Yep, and found out you can actually reuse those hardened grounds.
It's amazing how much there is to know about coffee.
Right. Even something simple like hardened coffee,
It just shows that there's always something new to learn.
if you're willing to look for it.
I like that. And, before we finish up, I wanted to go back to something you said earlier about coffee being a reflection of how we approach life.
Oh, yeah.
That really got me thinking.
It's interesting, right?
Yeah, like our coffee routine can tell us a lot about ourselves.
It can show our priorities, our habits, whether we like to try new things.
Right, like do we choose convenience over quality? Do we always do the same thing, or are we open to trying new stuff?
Exactly. And think about what you do when your coffee hardens. Do you just try to fix it quickly, or do you figure out what caused it?
It's a good point, and it makes me wonder how that applies to other parts of life,
Oh, yeah.
like our work, our relationships, our personal growth.
That's a really good question to consider.
It's like coffee is a mini version of how we make decisions.
Yeah, like a little window into our habits and what we like.
Exactly. It's pretty cool how something like coffee can get us thinking about bigger things.
Yeah, it's all about being observant and curious.
Totally. And, as we're wrapping up this deep dive, I'm thinking about everything we've learned, not just about hardened coffee, but about coffee in general.
Right.
It's like, it's not just something you do. It's more like a craft,
Yeah. Got to pay attention to detail and be willing to try new things.
And that applies to so many things, right?
Yeah.
Not just coffee.
Totally. Like any project or hobby or even relationships.
Taking the time to understand the details makes a big difference.
It really does.
It's like you said before, knowledge is right there in front of us.
Mm.
We just got to look for it. So what's the main takeaway for our listeners today from all this hardened coffee talk?
I think it's about being aware of the choices you make,
Okay,
even with something as simple as coffee.
right.
Those choices, those little habits, they say something about how you approach life,
That's deep.
right? Like, do you look for quick fixes or do you get to the root of the problem?
That's a good one.
Do you like trying new things or sticking with what you know?
Those are some things to think about, for sure.
Yeah, and not just with your coffee.
So we encourage everyone listening to try out some of the techniques we talked about.
Yeah, play around with different ways of brewing.
Maybe even make that ice cream with the hardened grounds.
Why not?
And most importantly, just be curious.
Yay.
Ask questions. And don't be afraid to try something new.
Exactly.
Because you never know, you might discover a whole new love for coffee.
And maybe learn a little something about yourself in the process.
I love that. Well said. Until next time, happy brewing, everyone.